Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sink and Swim. Today I get the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Elizabeth Lyons, who's a dear friend and mentor of mine, and also a mom and a 6-time published author, a book writing and publishing guide, and a woman who knows what it means to trust your voice, tell your story, and help others do the same. She's also a maker. You should see the DIY things she does. A baker, and someone who believes that stories are one of the most powerful ways we can connect with ourselves and with each other. And so do I. I love that. There's many things I love about Elizabeth, but one of the main ones is her honesty and her humor. She doesn't pretend the journey has been easy. And I can tell you that in her books, like the way she talks in her books is how she talks in real life, which number one is a skill. It doesn't seem like it should be a skill, but it is a skill to write how you talk. She's mastered it. So if you've ever read any of her books, and I encourage you to if you haven't, it's going to sound just like she does on this podcast. She has wrestled with people pleasing. She has learned what it means to unlearn old patterns. She has found her way back to self-trust amidst all of that, all while helping countless of others bring their own voices onto the page and grapple with all those things too. So let's dive in. Welcome.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's the end of the day. It's the end of the week. I feel like this week has been a month long.
Agreed. On Tuesday, I was like, is it Friday? Yesterday, I really struggled. Like, I did not know for a solid minute, which is a pretty long time when you're trying to figure out what day it is. I was like really concerned about myself.
Well, that's been me all week, so I resonate.
And what was hard is I was actually doing a podcast with a woman who is in Singapore. So while it was Wednesday for me, it legit was Thursday for her. So when I said, what day is it? And she said, it's Thursday. And then I got even more tripped up.
Right. Which way is up and which way is down? Who knows? It's anyone's guess at this point.
It's anyone's guess. That's for sure.
Okay, so we met in a mastermind several years ago, which was one of the best things to come out of the mastermind was knowing you and getting to stay connected. And then I was in your own book writing mastermind.
Yeah.
Working on my own, which by the way, I think I messaged you, but actually I was lying. Literally breaking news.
Okay, breaking news.
45 minutes ago, I can say with certainty I'm done with my first draft.
This is breaking news. This is a great day. It's September 25th, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah. Officially done. So anyway, that's the breaking news.
What are you drinking?
A very, very fancy beverage known as LaCroix here in my fancy glass because life is short. Why not?
Use the fancy glasses. I feel like your favorite friend, Taylor Swift, would approve.
Taylor Swift would absolutely approve of that. My favorite friend. So tell us about you and why we're talking about books.
So, gosh, this is like my least favorite question in the whole world. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but when it's like, so tell us about yourself. But I guess the way I would summarize the book side of me is I love stories. I love all manner of stories. I love words and I love the way that people use words. And I love the way that words mean different things to different people. And so that might be a whole psychology side of me that I realized way too late that I was fascinated by. But I just love stories. I love fictional stories. I love real stories. All of it. And so that's where my love of working on books comes from, is really helping people tell their story, whether it's their lived story or helping them construct and further hone their constructed story, right? In a way that really brings in a reader and helps a reader identify either with a lived story or a fictional story, because I do truly believe that we can learn as much from reading fiction about ourselves as we can learn, while reading nonfiction. So that's in a nutshell. And then it's kind of everything that goes with that I feel capable of helping people with. So there are certain elements of the book writing and publishing process that I like, full disclosure, not my lane.
First of all, it's so good that you're aware of what's not your lane. And you're so good at directing to the right person or resource to fill that lane.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
The goal is not to be everything to everyone. That's exhausting and impossible. And I am I'm grateful that I have people now that I can say, "Oh, I'm not the right person. However, I think you might wanna," and I think that's also, part and parcel of the whole story thing, right? Is how we
Yeah.
connect to other people, and sometimes part of your story, pun intended, is that maybe you asked me for help with something and I'm not the right person, but I connected you to this person, and then maybe they connected you to this other person, and now you're best friends forever, right?
So, what would you say are the favorite parts of your lane in guiding other people?
Think one of the favorite parts is when someone's writing nonfiction or memoir, trying to help someone talk through why they're stuck in a specific spot, what that's bringing up for them, what their fears are around it. And the authors who write them are often very knowledgeable in the area in which they're writing, so much so in fact that many times they almost forget that they know more than their reader does.
Yeah.
And so there are lots of pockets that are missing where a reader, if you're not very clear about where that reader is in his or her experience of your material, will be very confused. And I love that. One of the things I've had to learn over the last 9 years in that coaching too is where my lane ends. Because especially when we're doing memoir, when it becomes clear that I'm not an inner child or a trauma expert, I'm not none of that. So it's very important to me that I recognize when we're treading into an area where I need to lovingly and compassionately suggest that the author perhaps seek additional
Yeah.
therapy, additional support outside of me, because I'm admittedly not qualified to do. I'm qualified through Google. Like that's like, I'm and my own life experience. And I've said that for years, but that's it. So,
Yeah. Well, it's so emotional
mhm.
to write, whether it's a nonfiction book where you're sharing your expertise, but then there's stories in there to back it, whether they're your own or your own client stories. And then, of course, a memoir. If you're going to have that emotional resonance, then you've got to
Yeah.
revisit those emotional moments. And if you don't have the resource and the wherewithal to hold yourself as you revisit, it's going to come out in the writing. Like it's not going to do justice because you're going to skim over it. Or it can unravel you, or like you end up telling the story from the outside looking in.
Or you end up telling someone else's story.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's so important as someone who's gone through the process
Mhm.
now to have someone to be like, "Oh God, can I talk to you about that?" Like this is a little deeper than just like help me figure out how to wrap words around this. It's like help me
Mhm.
process this next layer. And maybe there is a nudge to take it a layer deeper. And in order to do that, I need support.
Right. 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 So it's figuring out, do I want to go a layer deeper? And if I do want to go a layer deeper, how do I do that? And if I don't want to go a layer deeper, I don't have to. But how do we make sure that the reader doesn't feel like you're leaving things out? Let's go with the sink and swim, right? You can't take the reader down and not bring them back.
There's a responsibility, yeah,
Yes.
to that storytelling piece of, and I've always known this. I'm like you, I love storytelling. I love helping people with storytelling. It's in the work I do, although mine's more in the more like life spirit coaching lane, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And years ago, I did a lot of speaking and storytelling and sharing like on stages. And I remember recognizing you have a responsibility to the audience to tell a good story, to draw them in to whatever it is you're speaking about. But you also have a responsibility to help like bring them from the edge of their seat, waiting and like emotional in it with you, back to the back of their seat. It's like, and we're gonna relax. And like help, like not that I'm responsible for their emotions, but you kind of are in a way. Like it's like
Right.
don't trigger them and then leave them hanging.
And don't do it purposefully, or if you're doing it purposefully, do it intentionally purposefully, right? It's like you don't want anyone to come up to you later and say, "Oh my god, you made me have an anxiety attack." Don't knowingly leave them in a place that is uncomfortable.
You've got to bring it back
You got
to
to bring it back. It's like
baseline.
all stories have we got to land the plane. You got to land
Hmm.
the plane. Now,
Hmm.
where you land the plane is your decision. Just make sure it's an intentional decision. And that'll help so much too when you go to do any kind of marketing or promotion, because when people ask you about, and this happens a lot when people are writing about, their divorce or something where They don't want to talk about the other person and probably shouldn't in most cases. But when the questions ultimately come, you want to be able to confidently say, yeah, I purposely am not touching that. You don't want to feel like you're a deer in the headlights
That's right.
when someone's
That's right.
asking you about something. Mhm.
And that's actually been a really interesting piece, and a part that I've really enjoyed about that creative process is you get to choose the depth of truth that you share, and that's actually incredibly powerful. And it's not withholding or lying. There's actually so much self-honor and other honor in that.
Yes.
And yet sometimes you might share about that other person. Like, the story won't hold if you don't give the details.
Right. Right.
And, like, you don't take us into the scene of what was
Right.
said, because it just feels like a glossing over,
Right.
It's like you don't do it emotional justice. But yeah.
It's important that the reader understands why it matters.
Mhm.
So I'll often ask authors with whom I'm working, why does this matter? And that can feel very challenging. Like I'm asking them to defend themselves and I'm not. It's it's true, it's literal. Why tell me why this matters. So once you can tell me and I can have a better context around it, maybe we can find a air quote better way into it and out of it than just dropping it like a big elephant in a living room and then expecting people to be like, "Where'd this come from and why is it still here and when is
Mm.
it leaving?"
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Great metaphor.
you
Why
know
is it
me and my
here?
analogies and metaphors. They're never
Gosh.
ending.
Oh, so much gold here already. I'm curious for anyone who is, especially because you've walked it yourself 6 times and you've guided so many people. And I know this might not be able to be boiled down into one thing. So pick 3.
Okay.
What do you wish every aspiring author knew before they began?
That it takes a while. That is the number one thing. Well, okay. I can pretty quickly do 3. So that it takes a while. Like
Mhm.
this write a book in a weekend stuff is garbage. Can you outline it in a weekend? Sure. Can you okay, but crazy. 2, that every other author feels or has felt the way you're currently feeling,
Mhm.
including New York Times bestselling authors, including 70-time authors with 70 books under their belt. Every book is a new, it's like to a degree, like starting all over again.
Mm.
And just because you've written a book and released it doesn't mean that now it's not like, well, once I do one, everything will be easy. So I think, and that's so much what I aim to shed light on in my own podcast, right? Is sharing from the perspective of indie authors, traditionally published authors, New York Times bestselling authors, the gamut, that everyone's like, "Oh, I didn't know everyone else felt this way. I thought it was just me."
Mm.
So that's 2. And I guess the third thing would be people would be surprised how many authors today do not have any sort of formal training as a writer. Of
Mm.
course, we have the literary writers who are incredible, who have MFAs and went to Iowa Writers Workshop and et cetera, residencies and the like. The vast majority of contemporary writers today, specifically memoir, women's fiction, they are learning the craft. I have had so many people say my first book was my MFA.
Yeah.
And whether that book sees or saw the light of day, sometimes yes, sometimes no. That was their, they really immersed themselves in the craft of constructing story with words on the page, which is different from, say, The Moth,
Mhm.
storytelling from a stage.
Mhm.
It's a completely different beast.
Oh, it's such a different beast. Yeah. Well, because it lingers forever. It's like, and it's gotta be somewhat timeless?
Well, when you're on stage, right, you have other modalities that you can add in. I mean, look at me. I talk with my hands. So, in order to be able to talk with my hands in the page, it requires exclamation points. I am the queen of exclamation points, and I have to limit myself in my books because if I had it my way, every sentence would end with 5, I mean, it wouldn't, but 5 exclamation points. The editor in me is like, "Hell no." But
Hmm.
how do we communicate enthusiasm and excitement? And when you're speaking on stage and you can bring it down like this, and it was a cold, dark night, how do we bring the reader down to that pace with words?
Yeah. I think about some of the best books I've read that you then see it in movie, how it's portrayed as a movie. And I'm like, it was written so well when the movie matches exactly what I was picturing and feeling.
Well, and bless the director of the movie who
Hmm.
stuck with the original
Right.
and didn't feel the need. Because again, sometimes books, in order to work on the screen, something has to be adapted slightly. And
That's right.
sometimes that's the storyline to a
That's right.
degree,
That's
right?
right.
So yeah, it's fascinating to me.
So fascinating. I love this thread about figuring out how to wrap the not tangible parts of language and experience and communication into words.
Mhm.
I'm curious how, in your own experience, you've learned how, to both as someone through the editor lens, but also as someone through the writer lens, which are slightly different lenses. You've got
Yeah.
the editors a little bit more like brass tacks, and here's what's going to, work for other humans. How do you learn to trust your own voice as you're writing?
Well, what I've learned is that's such a bigger question because you can be someone who is extremely good at what you do professionally, whatever that is. And you're accomplished and you have all of the accolades, whatever those are, to air quote prove how accomplished and good and skilled you are. That same person will go write a book who's never written a book and all of a sudden just feel completely incompetent
Mm,
and start to have a lot of self doubt. So to me, it starts with a noticing and an acceptance of, I don't know. And the truth is, you'll never know with a book how it's going to be received until it's on the market. And also, it could be not well received and have absolutely zero to do with you. So,
yeah.
for authors whose books were released 3 days before or after COVID really hit the scene, or just any major situation that happens, their books won't perform as expected. It has nothing to do with them.
Mm,
Horrible timing.
mm.
So I think when you're in the writing process, it's just accepting that this is part of it. Like, oh, this is the part where I start to question myself.
Interesting that you say that because I think that it's almost like saying, in order to trust yourself, you also have to trust that you will question yourself, paradoxically speaking, like that this is just part of the
Yeah.
process.
So there's such a broad gap between humility and arrogance.
Hmm.
If you never ever question yourself, to me, you're either inherently arrogant or you're arrogant to cover your deep lack of self trust. I've not come across a creative, whether you're writing, painting, singing, any of that, who doesn't at some point go, I don't know if this is any good. And they get on stage to perform and they don't know how's this gonna go. So it does bring about the opportunity to work on that aspect of ourselves.
Yeah. If you're not questioning or feeling doubt a little bit, there's something inherently inhuman about that, or you're 4 years old, you know? So egocentric, so inherently like, and I'm going to use this word, it's a strong word, but it's actually normal for 4-year-olds, which is narcissistic.
Yeah.
That's normal at age 4.
Yes.
Like, you have no qualms, you have no question. You'll get up on stage and sing. There's no questioning, there's no doubt. And I love that for them. And may we all bend into our inner 4-year-old in that way. But I think what it sounds like you're saying is, as an adult within a developed prefrontal cortex and emotional development that we hope has occurred, that it's healthy and normal and natural to have some doubt in the process, because it's like that's an area of growth inward and therefore outward on the page. Growth not only in you seeing your own expression, but how are other people going to see it and receive it?
Well, and it's also it's growth in being willing to have someone else say, this isn't for me. And for
Yeah.
you to just say,
Okay. Yeah. Woo! That's vulnerable.
writing a book is one of the most growth, like expansive things you can do and vulnerable.
Mhm.
And putting those two things together is not something that people anticipate when they sit down and say, I think I'm going to write a book.
I think that's one reason I chose memoir is because I knew it would be first and foremost for me,
Mhm.
like expansion and expression and deepening my own understanding of parts of my story, and processing of parts of my story. I needed to go through that process, and it wasn't just about being authoritative in my knowledge.
If that's your intention, I mean, and that's also where editing by an outside party is super helpful. And it's important that an editor knows what your intention is
Right. Yeah.
so they can
Yeah.
work within those guidelines because otherwise the editor is potentially telling you what he or she thinks it should be.
Yeah. Acted as a writer and a publisher and an editor. Are there favorites for you in each part of the process? We're talking about the hard parts, but what's fun in each part of the process?
So, as an author, the fun part is when I know how something is going to be written. Like right now, working on this novel, which I swear I'll be working on for the next 30 years. Like it's just, it feels like it's just going to be forever. But when something just works and I feel like the scene is so vibrant in my mind's eye that I can write it easily. When things click, like when I get ideas for ways to connect something from the beginning to something to the end, something like that, that's super fun. That
Mhm.
I can't get home fast and I can't get in front of the
Yeah,
laptop
I
fast enough.
I hear you on that.
Editing other people's work, man, how do I say this? There's not a lot better than when an author has really and truly put everything they have into the draft that they turn over to their editor. And yes, there are almost always things that can be tweaked or enhanced or whatever, but you can just feel them on the page. And it's like this knowing that I'm the only one right now who's had the privilege of having my eyes on this. It's sort of this, I mean, it's a gift for sure, but it's kind of just this like secret moment where I know how much this work is going to impact whomever it reads, whether it's fiction or non or memoir or whatever. And I'm so in awe that my eyes are seeing it before anybody else's. And sometimes it's not before anybody else's. Sometimes there have been other beta readers and et
Uh-huh.
cetera, but like it's before it's out to the world.
It's in its most raw form.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
naked.
And which is another thing I've said, wouldn't it be great? Not you and I think have talked about this. If there were a book that on the left-hand side, it was the very first iteration of chapter 1, and on the right-hand side, or chapter 7 or whatever, on the right-hand side, it was the final version after all the drafts and all the editing and all the tweaking and etc. It's like I see in whatever state the draft is when it comes to me, it's at its most raw for me. And so to be able to go back to the author and say whatever I say developmentally and whatever my suggestion is, and then see what they do with that, that is that is so fun.
Yeah.
That is so fun.
You go from that raw, naked to you version to a transformed, even like more expansive, more expressed, potentially, we hope, right?
Right.
um,
Right.
and that is it sounds so much like the coaching process where you start working, I mean, the more life coaching process, like where you start working with someone, or even like I'm a physical therapist in my background. It's like you get that first vulnerable, raw moment with someone. And what like a gift, you're right, it's sacred. It's like to be trusted with that. And then you get to see it on the other side of what it
Mhm.
became and who that person became, not just the writing, but who did
Right.
they become
Right.
in the process too. Yeah.
The way they see something more clearly and kind of the aha moments that they have. It's I love it.
I also like this point you said about you can tell how in it they are. That's something you said early on that I really took to heart, which I think also speaks to your like 2 pieces of advice, really your 3 pieces of advice. It takes a while. It's not just you, and it's normal. Like, you don't have to be a formally trained writer to start. I feel like there's this element of give it time for your own expression to develop and your own writing to develop. Don't rush it for the sake of getting it out there, unless for some reason you need to.
And when would you need to? Yeah. I had someone reach out just about a month ago and say they were looking for an editor, and they were insistent that the book be able to be edited within 4 weeks, which I won't commit to. I mean, that's not my process. And when I inquired as to why, it was because my competitor, this was a business book, my competitor is launching a book the week after, and I want to make sure that I can usurp that person in the Amazon rankings. Like, I want to get out there first. And I thought, and I responded differently than I would have responded 8 years ago, even 5 years ago. I was very much, because I believe you have to let people just be on their journey. And this person didn't ask me, hey, do you think that's a good plan? So I just said, I totally understand. Just to reassure you, I don't think that's completely necessary. If you want to talk about that further, let me know. But if this is your timeline, I'm not the right person for you. And they did go with someone else, which is great, which is fine. And I wish them all the best with their,
Mhm.
and for all the goals that they're looking to hit. I hope that they hit them. I just, the book will be out there in perpetuity. So this mad rush, it's almost like in the book industry, there are two sectors. I made this analogy before and it's a little bit off color, but if you want to be an actor, some people want to like get an Oscar. They want to be they want to be like the Robert De Niro, the Meryl Streep. They want to really hone their craft. And some people want to be in porn. They're all acting,
Yep.
right? But it's the same people who want to be Meryl Streep would not be going to networking events and having conversations and building the craft of, as the people who want to be in adult films. And that's not even a derogatory or a critical statement. It's just two same sort of industry, but different subsets of the industry. Book publishing is the same. So we've got people who really want to write a book that entertains, engages, grows, allows them to write more books, that sort of thing. And then we have the side that's like, look, I don't really care if it's well written. This is about building my business. I just want to, and that's okay, I might add, but not if you are, it doesn't typically work well if you do not take the time to still make it, air quote, good.
Well, I hear exactly what you're saying, and I think it depends on your goal,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I feel like, you know, coming from the editor lens, because what you were telling me or what you said a while back and kind of where I'm drawing this from is like an editor can only take you so far as what you've given them, right?
Correct.
And I love that so much because I've read so many books, as you know, and so many nonfiction books. Those are the ones especially where you can see it, right? Where it's kind of like, it's okay. It's a 2 to 3 star book, it's like okay-ish, but the writing's not that good. And I'm like, I just don't feel connected to the author. And it feels like there's this other motive here. And again, no judgment behind
Mm-mm.
that, but it's just, I like emotionally compelling stuff that draws me in and I can't put it down until I stay up till 3:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
no matter the genre.
No matter the, and all the more reason to know what you're doing and why. What's your goal?
Yes.
Because then if you know what your goal is and the book isn't going there, you don't look backwards and go, "Oh, I wish someone would have told me that, I shouldn't call a 10,000 word book a book. I should maybe call it like a big PDF."
Mhm.
Or some such thing. Um,
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Yeah. For me, it's definitely that was, you know, even from the outset, and I know I told you, I was like, I'm just here for the fun of it. Like
mhm,
still, like, I still feel like the process has been so fun.
mhm.
And the minute it's not fun, I'm like, I'm out. I'm out because it needs to stay fun because that's where I really get in it. Like you're saying, where I'm like, ooh, I can figure out how to like do this one little segment and like put all the pieces together. And ooh, like this thing in this chapter. And oh, I see the callback that I didn't even realize I just made. And,
Yes.
That part is
Yes.
so enjoyable, and it just allows for more of me to come into it, which
Right.
no editor could do for me. Yeah.
And there's a big misconception, I think, specifically with first time authors, and understandably, because if you've never been through the process, how would you know this? That your editor's job is actually to help rewrite. Like if you don't know how to say something, they'll help you say it. I shouldn't say it's never correct. There might be editors out there who are willing to do that. That's not where because then I'm writing that's ghostwriting
It's
or
ghostwriting.
co-writing,
Yeah.
as opposed to making some suggestions about like, how could we tighten this up? How could we make this sentence just isn't quite landing, but you're kind of working on it together. So I think sometimes first time authors are like, well, I mean, I've done just sort of the best I can almost. I'm just tired of looking at it. I'm going to send it off to my editor and he or she'll fix the whole thing. And that's not what it is. It's not what it is. Yeah.
It's not like a surgeon, Have you watched the Netflix series Younger?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think about it?
Okay, I love it so much. And can I just say I was just in New York City with my son
Uh-huh.
George, and the
Uh-huh.
first night that we got in at like it was late. And it was anyway, I go to bed at like 4 p.m., but it was like 9 p.m. And then my friend Kate didn't get in until 11:30, and she said, "We're going to Marie's Crisis." And I was like, "I am not going to Marie's Crisis." I did not go. But my son and my friends Kate and McKenna went to Marie's Crisis from midnight to 3 a.m. and then came home. I love the show.
Love it because it brings like the writing and editing and publishing industry into conversation.
Agree.
I don't know what's accurate and what's not, and that's
Sure.
not the point, I feel like. But I do feel like I learned a lot that is probably accurate, that gives me a lot of respect for the people on the editing and publishing side of the process. Like I brought the segue in when you were saying like the editor doesn't rewrite the book because the character, oh gosh, she was 40 but playing 26. I can't remember her name. Oh, Liza.
Liza.
Liza volunteered to kind of rewrite this like famous author's book that was garbage. And she nailed it, right? But then the famous author was really mad about it
Mhm.
and like
Mhm.
ego got involved. And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I bet that when like big name people, it's on the line and they turn in a draft that's garbage, the publishing house is like, crap, like, what are we going to do?
I'm an indie publishing, like
Right.
that's my world. I've never said I will never traditionally publish. I just haven't wanted to go that route as of yet. But it's not bad or good or right or wrong. There's pros and cons to everything. The traditional publishing the traditional publishing process is a lot more convoluted than people realize.
Okay, this is great. I actually wanted to ask you about this. As someone, so by the way, this is the first time I think on my podcast I've said, "Hey, by the way, I just finished writing." I mentioned it in another interview that actually came out this week with my friend Kate because we have very parallel journeys in many ways. Anyway, that's the first time I said it, but I didn't like go into more detail. But I have obviously told some people,
Right?
and it's so funny, and I know you know this. The reactions, the
Oh my
assumptions,
god. Oh my god. I
the
know. It's wild, isn't it?
point,
It's look at
anyone
me sitting up.
listening who has said these things to me, I'm not putting you on blast, but to your point of like people don't know, like your 3 pieces of advice for new authors,
Mhm.
I feel like those also need to go out to the general public. Like we need to put it on the front page of the New York Times. That's like, okay, like if your friend is writing a book, maybe you
Oh my
need to
god.
make some posts about this that are like, here's what not
I was
to
just gonna say,
say.
you just gave me a great, like a whole series post
Series of
idea.
blogs and posts
Thank you. I will credit you, of course. Yes. Things not to say to your friend who has a book coming out.
or a family member.
That's a series in and of itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And it becomes like I started writing August 1st of 2024 and we're now talking September 25th of 2025.
Mhm.
That's 14 months.
Mhm.
Where I'm finally like I'm closing it. I'm not tweaking it any longer. I'm going to pass it on to a beta reader. We're good to go.
Okay.
So in August 2024, I also took a little step back from my work and I was kind of in a pause because I was like, I'm going to focus on writing. This is just what we're doing. Like, I told a couple people at that point because the question was like, what are you working on? How's work? And so there was this easy little thing to slide in there that was like, well, I'm actually writing a book. And then literally every time they ran into me after that, that's all they could ask me. And they're like, so have you published it yet? Are you going to do like a book tour? That's everyone's favorite question.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, we're not there yet.
This is so interesting because there are like degrees of misunderstanding about what publishing is. So on the very outer edge of the degrees are just what I'll call regular people, non-authors, people who have never written a book, don't have any interest in writing a book, whatever. Then you move in a little closer to the epicenter, and it's people who want to write a book and make assumptions about how this all works. And then you have the epicenter of people who have been through it and still sometimes are like, well, I've written 8 books, but I've never had this happen before. I mean, it's a constant navigation of, I think like my mantra, if you want to call it that all the time, is just like, wait, what? Because there's just new things happening all the time.
Well, and you also hear of the celebrity authors or celebrities who become authors. And everyone sees Brené Brown doing her TED Talks and doing her book tour and showing up on everyone's podcast. Back in the day, she was showing up on although I just saw she was on the Good Morning America. Like they're doing TV spots. They got all this stuff, right? Like, and so I've been asked the questions, are you going to be on the Today Show?
Right.
Are you going to be on Oprah? And I'm like,
Oprah doesn't have a show anymore, folks.
well,
I mean,
and it's like
Sunday, but
it's like you don't know how to answer because you realize you're about to burst someone's bubble by being honest, which I don't really, I'm not shy about, but at the same time, it's like, I'm going to pull you into the reality of actually like the second layer bubble, right? Just a little bit. I'm on this third layer, but let me just pull you into the second layer, or pull that second layer person into the third layer. And at the same time, I've gotten this reaction like, well, do you not believe in yourself? Like, do you not believe that you could be the same as Brené Brown? I'm like, that's not really what it's about.
Do you have a limiting belief?
I'm like, this isn't a confidence issue on my part. Maybe. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but that's not necessarily the first and foremost goal that we're going for here. And if it is, I'm in the wrong channel.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's a lot of just assumptions, misunderstandings, misconceptions, which is a lot of what I spend my time doing, to be honest, is helping aspiring authors better understand, because it actually, sometimes it can be delivered in a way that it feels like, oh, this is so negative. Like, no, you're probably not going to get a $500,000 advance. No, you're probably not going to go on a book tour. No, you're probably not going to get on the Today Show. And that can all feel very negative. But here's the thing. Once you start getting clear about what can happen, and also that most traditionally published authors aren't doing major tours, the Today Show, and getting a $500,000 advance, you start to feel like, I better understand how this works now. And now that I better understand it, I can better set my own expectations. And once your expectations are set better, my God, I mean, the number of problems that solves is large.
It's large. And it's one of the things that you've said, is even getting on the Today Show doesn't sell your book.
Yeah, it's fewer than 200 books sell as the result of appearing on the Today Show. And when you think about that, it's wild, because I don't know what the Today Show's viewership is today, but I'm imagining it's still in the millions.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day when I started, 20 years ago, it was significantly higher. And even then, the average author would sell maybe 350 copies. Again, to sell 200 to 300 copies for one 4-minute appearance is nothing to snub your nose at. Like, that's great. The problem is that people's expectation, oh my gosh, if 5 million people are watching and only 1% buys, I mean, I need ChatGPT to do math for me, but that's more than 200, I think.
Yeah.
So then they feel like there's something wrong with them because they didn't sell that many. And further, the cost today of hiring a publicist, if you're an independent author who can even attempt to get you on the Today Show, is prohibitive for many, if not most, independent authors.
That's actually been that's been a huge point that I've explained to people coming from the marketing world too, where I understand what it takes to have that type of exposure. Is that sort of another bubble burster? Okay, so let me just walk you through what Brené Brown has at her disposal resource-wise. Like she's got an agent, someone who's like real good at negotiating and dealing with contracts and totally in that person's corner. they're going to have a publicist or a team, a whole publicist team.
99% of a traditional publishing house's marketing budget goes toward 1% of their authors. It's the Brené Browns and the James Pattersons and the Colleen Hoovers and the Emily Henry. That's where the marketing budget is going. Now, more and more today, they are diverting a little more of their funds toward debut, specifically debut fiction authors. Every publishing house is hoping that, like, where's the next Colleen Hoover?
That's
Where's the
right.
next Emily Henry? Where's the next Taylor Jenkins Reid? That's so they're, but there's a big middle area there
Yeah.
of what they call mid-list authors, which is not a derogatory term. It is sometimes perceived that way, however.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
those authors are very much having to use a large portion of their advance in many cases, or I should say choosing to, but sometimes it may even be agreed to upfront to go out and hire their own publicist to the tune of a $5,000 a month retainer with a 3-month minimum. And
It's a full-time job,
it's a full-time
it's a
job. It's a
full-time
full-time
employee.
job, and the money goes fast.
Mhm. Yeah, 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 yeah. I've had a couple friends who've self-published and hired publicists, which is very cool because they get little speaking spots here, but they're not like this huge high profile thing, you
For sure.
know? And even they're like, yeah, that didn't really sell a lot of books, but it gave me this sort of street cred, you know?
Yes.
And that I think is a really important piece. And I think that like bringing it into the self-publishing conversation that's the part where people are like, well, you're going to try and go for a publisher. And I'm like, maybe, probably not, because like, and you've done a great job, I think, without disparaging, it's like, this is the honesty and the humor of it, of like, self-publishing isn't like a 4-letter word. It's not this like dirty place. And some of the best books you read that are now those people on my bookshelf,
Yeah.
they started that way, or they
Correct.
still do it
Brené
that way.
Brown started
Right.
that way.
Exactly. With the books into the trunk of her car. Right. Like,
Correct. Yeah.
I love that story.
Yeah.
But I think that, but then you have to talk. People are like, well, how are you going to like, then the book tour questions come in and I'm like, I'm going to be on my own pretty much, like
Yeah.
getting this out there.
Correct.
Like, it's just like anything else that I do in marketing at that point.
Exactly.
And, again, you have to be clear on the goal and just have those expectations really clear and I think have that internal dialogue for yourself on what are my expectations and goals and what's the plan, but then even have it for the external world. I think that it's not that we're kind of like, not that we're responsible for what people think about the publishing process, but at the same time, so that they see how seriously you're taking it when it doesn't look like you're taking it seriously. Yeah. Because it's not what Brené Brown does now. It is fun though. I am enjoying it. So we've talked a lot about writing.
Now you're going to get me into the hard stuff, huh?
This is sink and swim.
I
You gotta
know.
sing. Well, I'm gonna quiz you at your own game. So you've published 6 books and you are very clear to tell me that one of them is a republish of an original, but that counts. Can you walk us through what's the premise of each and like what's the storyline and how it mirrors your own evolution?
Okay, so the first one was originally titled Ready or Not, Here We Come. It's the guide to the first year with twins. So basically, how to do all the things and stay sane and eat more than Cheerios, but also know that if all you're eating is Cheerios, that's totally fine.
Right.
The second one is Ready or Not, There We Go, which is the toddler years with twins, which is like, oh my God, this is how I potty trained 2 at once, dealt with twice the tantrums, etc., but also had a lot of fun and didn't lose my mind. The third one is called You Cannot Be Serious and 32 Other Rules That Sustain a Mostly Balanced Mom, with the word mostly in parentheses. And that came about because someone asked me how I was with a friend going through a Starbucks, of course, drive through, and I had all 5 of my kids in the back seat. And they were, I want to say 8 and younger at that point, and they were all fighting and it was a mess. And I just was very calm, which was not always the case, by the way, but in that moment I was. And she said, I don't know how you're doing this. And I said, well, it's probably one of my rules. And so the rule was like, allow chaos or something, And so she said, you should write a book about this. And I was like, nobody but the more I thought about it, I thought that could be fun for me to do. So it's really, what are my rules, or what were my rules? Many of them are still true, even though my kids are now 17 to 26, of how do I stay mostly sane as a mom and as a business owner? Like, how
Hmm.
do I do those? Let's see. 4 was Enough, The Simple Path to Everything You Want. And that's a perpetual guide for, or a field guide for perpetually exhausted entrepreneurs. So
Love it.
this came about because it was like back when you and I met, I feel like the prevailing voices in the entrepreneurial space were just like, go, 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 more, 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 more. Like, if you have $1 million, you could have $2 million. And if you have 3 cars, you could have 6. And if it was just, I just felt like, when is it ever going to be enough? And
Amen.
right. And what I realized was, wait a minute, what I've got to figure out is what's enough for me. And how do I get to a place within myself where I'm perfectly, if someone can say to me, you have 3, I don't have 3 houses, but you have 3 houses, you could have 4, you could have 4. And I can just look at them and go, yeah, I know. And just go about my day with no animosity, with no resentment, with no nothing. And so that book was really sort of the result of my own self exploration into, man, when you got all these voices telling you what you should do and you have to do and what's enough for me. The 5th book was the 3rd edition of the first book. So it was completely redone and it was retitled Holy Shit, I'm Having Twins. I had,
Hmm.
by that point, I felt come more into my voice. And when I wrote the first book, that was in 2003, and I was afraid to swear and I was trying to be so politically correct and everything. And with this book, I just was like, it's me coming on the page. I'm going to
Hmm.
tell you how I did this and what I did and what I didn't do. And if that works for you, awesome. And if it doesn't, that's also awesome. And let me know what does work for you. And let's build this community of twins parents who are just
I
holding
love
on for
this.
dear life. Right. And then the last one was Write the Damn Book Already, which is how to essentially, my process anyway, for getting out of your own way in order to write memoir or nonfiction. And then really explaining to some degree the different publishing paradigms. And it really was set up to answer so many of the questions and the pushback and the concerns that first time authors have when they're writing nonfiction or memoir. Like, what if no one likes it? And what if someone gets mad at me? And what if I get sued? And what if it doesn't sell? How do I write about somebody else, et cetera, et cetera. That was that one. And now I'm working on a novel, and God willing, it will come out before I'm no longer here. It's a totally different beast for me. I'm trying to find other people who have written. I talked to this darling woman named Betsy Cornwell on my podcast last week, who's written 6 young adult fantasy novels. And she just wrote a memoir about leaving an abusive marriage and starting a residency for single moms. And I had to ask her, like, how was it switching from fantasy over to memoirs, such a more vulnerable pursuit, and writing fiction after having written so many nonfiction feels very vulnerable to me because I feel like I'm starting all over.
Yeah.
It's it's just different.
So much imagination too.
That,
No.
and I feel like that's the problem, Julie. I always, I don't know if it's like the self-diagnosed ADHD or what it is, but I get an idea and then I even fall prey to, but is that the right idea? Could it go a different way? Should it go a different way? I, man, I got to work myself through that.
Yeah.
It's not a walk in the park.
It's not a walk in the park. That there's no right or wrong in fiction. And yet
Well,
there's the one that lands, you know? It's sort of like
yeah.
if we're going to put rightness around it, it's like, "Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
this is it. This is the sweet spot."
like I was talking yesterday, I was talking to Turner Gable Khan. The book is called The Dirty Version, and it's
Mm,
romance, right? And I was like, this is great.
brilliant.
But she said there were like 4 endings. I was like, how did you pick one? I've got 4 beginnings, 16 middles, 32 endings, and a new character every 5 minutes.
My gosh, it's like choose your own adventure inside your own
Yeah,
writing process.
yeah.
The moving
There.
staircases in Harry Potter, like, oh
Exactly.
yeah, gosh, that does sound like a nightmare.
It is, but it's just fun, but also a nightmare.
Compared to
Yeah.
memoir, I mean, nonfiction's like very regimented, right? Like you've got
That's
the
the
outline.
thing.
It's memoir's a little bit more like, well, I don't know, how am I going to tell the story? Like, which version are we telling, right? But
Fiction would be so, see the air quotes, easy, because it's all imagination. You get to make everything up. Well, it turns out it still has to make sense.
Yeah.
Things
Yeah.
still have to be believable,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless I guess you're writing fantasy, which I'm absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, I have so much respect for really great fiction writers on
Oh,
how believable it gets and the imagination. Yeah, fantasy writers, every time I read like a romantasy or a fantasy, I'm like, how did you even come? What? How?
the
This is
easier it is
amazing.
to read a book, the harder it was to write.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. That's the case for everything. Sports, the easier it looks, the harder it was to get there. Yeah,
For
all of
sure.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yoga?
Yeah.
You should see me every morning.
Yeah.
Dear God.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
I've been seeing your videos. We do
Mm,
see you.
yeah.
It's
Well,
true.
I just
Okay.
want everyone to share.
I wanna like reflect something.
Okay.
There's going to be a Taylor Swift reference here. Of
Ooh.
course, there will be.
Okay.
I'm totally committed to that bit. So, your book eras, I feel like as you were saying that, these are like your book eras, and they're really mirroring where you were in your life, obviously. And they're also mirroring where you were in your own voice development. Like, it's like there's more swearing clearly as you end up where you are now,
Mhm.
which actually in Taylor Swift's eras, someone has done the research and created graphs on just how many swear words there are in her albums across her life, and her albums are all fairly autobiographical as well, and like how much swearing and honesty and realness there is versus in the beginning it's a little bit more sweet and people pleasing, and you're like, I'm being politically correct and making sure not to ruffle any feathers. So I'm curious, there's a follow-up question to this, which is, what did you need to unlearn in order to have, you've got the people who are like, tell me the how to on how to
Yeah.
feel confident in swearing in my book. That's not the question. It's like, what did you have to unlearn? What were the things that needed to be let go of?
So this is an answer that I'm still growing into.
Me
Like
too.
it's still
Yeah.
developing,
Yeah.
to be clear. I think it took me almost 50 years to really be able to look at who I am and who I've become and be like, I like her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a long time I was in programs and different things which were great, which were like it's important to love yourself. Like if we're talking about relationship advice, people will often say you have to love yourself before anyone else can love you. And I feel like I always loved myself. I had the love thing down, like, that was fine, I guess, but I didn't trust myself. I wasn't sure if it was okay to be me. I wasn't sure if it was okay to show up in the way that felt easy. And it
Yeah.
felt easy because it was authentic. And I so I had to unlearn, I guess, in answer to the question, what that was supposed to look like and what that was
Yeah.
supposed to feel like, and be willing to sort of peel it back like many times over many years. It wasn't like this step-by-step process of, well, I did this journal. All these things helped. Some more than others, some not at all. But the combination, I would say, from when I was about 46 or 47 to 50 was significant.
Yeah. This is right about when I met you.
I know. That's what I mean.
Interesting.
It was like that period of time was really interesting for me because I was investing, I was doing a lot of the shoulds
Mm-hmm.
in the business world anyway. And it was when my kids had kind of gotten old enough, they were quite self-sufficient. So I had a little bit more of my own time back. And I was doing all these shoulds and I was just like, what? Like, where is it? Is this it? Am I always just gonna have to get more? Is there always gonna be someone who disagrees with me? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there's always gonna be someone who doesn't like me, who doesn't like the way I said something, who doesn't like the shirt I wore, like all of it. So So what? And I don't think there was like one moment when I was like, oh, I figured it out because I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I find that now I I'm willing to take the time to say, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't feel like I have to have an answer for things,
Yeah.
professionally or personally.
Yeah. Well, it's like the unlearning of, and this is so cliche, like being worried about if it's okay with everyone else.
Mhm.
And the learning of I like it. It's okay because I do.
Right.
And if I do, chances are someone else does too.
Right.
And it's almost like again, it sounds cliche, but it's like putting your attention on the people that like it. It's a little like reductionist, but it's like
Well,
support you in the version of you that you like.
so that's it for me. I have an extremely small circle of
Yeah.
people whom I trust implicitly. And if one of them were to say, "Liz, what are you doing?" I would perk up.
Hmm.
Because for the most part, these people know me so well and they just let me be me. And I don't feel like in my life up to that point, I felt that. I'm not saying that no one was trying to be that, but I didn't feel that. I didn't feel safe in relationships. It's like, you'd be great if that's what I felt. No one ever said that, but it influenced the way that I moved in the world.
It matters.
It
It
mattered.
matters. You're naming the premise of my book.
I am.
Literally naming it. Yes. Which is like you can do all of the inner confidence work. You can love yourself. You can get clear on what you're supposed to be doing with your life. You can build a business around it, even. But there's one more piece, which is if you don't have even a small circle of people who genuinely let you be you in all of that you've worked on, your who am I? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? You can't fully express your voice and yourself.
When we can just let people be who and where they are, it's a great gift. It's not easy to do. And it's not easy to find people, in my experience, who are comfortable enough with themselves to let me be where I am because maybe they feel the need to prove that their point is right. Because if they can't do that, then what does that say? Then they're going to be uncomfortable. It's a constant
It's a constant thing, but I think
thing.
like just to like wrap it, it's sort of like you went from being overly concerned and like almost letting people's like or dislike direct what you were being, who you were
For
being,
sure.
how you were being, what you were even doing, how you were doing what you were doing. Two, there's certain people who can let me be me. I value their feedback on when I'm not being me, right? Like that's actually an important reflection or when there's a growth point. But they're there when I'm fully being me and it's like joyful and expansive and whatever and they're not trying to bring me down. And I think that there's this message that we are sent that's like don't care what anyone thinks. It's like, oh, I
Mm.
went from caring too much what everyone thought to not caring what anyone thought to this like hyper independence. But the truth is, you can't fully actually be fully you unless there's some people who reflect that and hold it, even when it's challenging to you for them to hold it. Like when they're reflecting something that's like, "Hey, Liz, no, that's not the vibe."
I've learned to really notice how my body feels and really, really trust. Like Janet Philbin is someone who I worked with as an author, and she's a therapist, and she did hypnotherapy for me for a period of time. Did some work together, and she didn't even present the concept of inner child to me. She let me discover it in my
Yeah,
own imagination.
yeah,
And so it was like, I still remember the moment. I remember where I was. I remember what I was seeing. I remember what I was feeling. I will never forget that. And that was such a gift because I didn't feel the pressure in my sessions with her to perform. So
yes,
I don't think I can express fully the pressure that I felt, whether it was self imposed or who knows, in my earlier years to be performative. Even in therapy,
yep, yeah, right.
like, I had to, like, impress the therapist.
Got to do it right. Gotta do
Yeah,
therapy
you gotta
right.
do it right, you gotta say it right, I mean, heaven like and it's such a nice feeling to just be able to be.
Just be. I call it the conformity corset, even in therapy, even in the doctor's office, even in like, I've got all these scenes in my book that are like, well, and I've got these inner characters, speaking of the inner child, but there are characters
Yeah,
that have become an integral part of the story and have their own character development that are internal. And one of them is like, no, you got to do it the way the doctor wants you to. And like, and I'm in healthcare. So there's also the
right.
conditioning, that's like, well, don't upset your colleague. Oh, it's so much of that though, that you're naming and breaking out of that corset. The corset is not just beliefs, it's also people, it's expectations, it's religion. Like there's so much. It's like breaking out of a cult. And I think, like you said, this will never stop evolving for us. But to recognize when you're in it, when you've kind of reached this point of like, I'm not out of it completely, but the laces are looser and it's easier to breathe here.
I
Yeah,
know what it feels like when it shows up.
that's right.
And so I'm more comfortable now going, "Oh god, I'm feeling it." And then I can take a minute, I can pause. Pause was not something that I was thought I would ever be able to do. Like I was a 0 to 100. I had to react immediately. You must defend. Oh my gosh. I barely recognize some earlier versions of myself. And that's not to dismiss her or say she was bad. I'm so much more comfortable now and hope to continue that getting more and
Yeah.
more. So,
They were roles you played that were
mhm,
protective and helpful at the time. Like, absolutely. That makes perfect sense.
yeah.
Speaking of roles you play, a little bit of a pivot. So you're into gardening, baking, DIY projects.
I'm attempting to bake. Let me be very clear. I know I'm about to enter my sourdough era.
Ooh.
I'm certain. I've watched no fewer now this is all gonna track. I've watched no fewer than 300 videos. I'm following 3 or 4 separate women on YouTube because I wanted to just follow one, but I really like all these women for different reasons. So I'm following them all, and they're not too diametrically, like, opposed as far as what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
I won't start anything. I mean, I've watched so many videos on how to start the starter. Oh my god. So tonight, I'm just gonna start the damn starter. It's gonna happen.
Ooh.
Yeah, stay tuned. So I'd like to tear out the whole primary bathroom. I just don't like it. The list of the number of things I would like to do in my house, like, okay, you've surely been asked the question, if someone gave you whatever it is that you need to just meet your basic needs for a year monetarily, what would you do with that year?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
great
Do
question.
you know what the answer is for you?
I would read and write.
For real?
Yeah,
I love that.
preferably just read. But I have a hard time taking in without putting back out. Like it's a giving receiving little thing
Yes.
that I figured out.
Yes.
Otherwise, I get kind of energetically constipated.
I knew the word constipated was coming in some way, shape, or form. I just
It's
knew it
got to
was.
come back out in some way, even if
I
it's
knew it
just
was. I just knew
journaling.
it was. So I thought there was something really wrong with me because I could not answer that question for the longest time. I was like, I guess I would watch Schitt's Creek and New Girl on repeat. Like, I guess that's what I would do. I realized maybe 3 weeks ago the answer to this question because I had a day when I was going to do nothing. It was a Sunday or something. And I was like, nothing's happening. And as it turned out, I ended up doing a bunch of things just by choice. And it was my garden, organizing my garage, probably had something to do with sourdough and some other DIY thing that I decided. So I thought, oh my God, that's what I would do. Like, I would just create, and I'm sure I would read a ton. There are some things that go without saying, but okay, this is what we're
Yeah,
going to do.
this is it.
This is it. We're going to bake sourdough and I might raise a Highland cow, a baby Highland cow in the backyard. Like I might do that. That sounds really fun. And I'm going to build stuff and I'm going to create a whole zinnia garden and a dahlia and peonies and ranunculus and like all of those things,
All the best.
all the best ones. And I'm going to, I've got, oh my God, I'm going to wallpaper the ceiling and I'm going to build beams and definitely tear out the bathroom. I want a full shower. Like I have it's,
Okay.
yeah.
You're going to need a little more than a year, maybe two.
I mean, I feel
Let's
like
dream big here.
if I could just I would take 2, but like if I could just get in there and just work on it, more
It's
often than I
true. That's
can,
true.
I might get things done more quickly.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Well, stay tuned.
Yeah,
We'll see.
stay tuned.
If there's any anonymous investors out there who want to
Right.
invest in this vision, Liz is
Who
open
knows
for
if I could
business.
work on the side, right, in order to
What a great book.
wouldn't that be fun? I
The
don't think
year
I
I
could
got
pull
paid to do
myself out
exactly what
of
I
the
want.
I don't think I could pull myself out of the book space though for a year. Like, it would
Well,
still be
yeah.
part of my life, to be clear. It's
Okay.
just if I didn't if it weren't kind of the, "Oh my god, but I have to pay the bills." If that worry were taken away, it would be interesting to see how I chose to spend my time every day.
Okay. So we need an investor
Right.
that's going to give you an advance to write the year I got paid to do whatever the hell I wanted
Mhm.
and the lessons I learned from it or who I became in the process, like whatever. And then there's the tagline,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it covers your living expenses and it covers the writing process and all the
Right.
things. So you're not abandoning writing.
Right.
Amazing.
I think it's a great
All
investment.
right. Anyone listening?
Right.
Put it out in the ethers.
It's out there. Right.
Put it in the cauldron.
That's
Stir it
right.
up. See if
Stir
it
it up.
comes
Stir it
back
up.
to you. I support this. All right. Beautiful. All right. Well, that actually is a nice segue into our lightning round.
Ooh, a lightning round. God.
All right. Here's number one. If you were any animal other than a human, what would it be and why?
So there's 2. I always say sloth, and the reason is because they're beloved for their laziness. Like, they're so slow and methodical, and they just oh my god, and also they have the strongest abdominal muscle of any animal. Did you know that?
I did
Their
know
their
that.
their ab their abdominal muscles are, rock solid. But the other one I think right now might be a miniature Highland cow because I'm telling you, they're so god, I think they're just living their best life.
Amazing.
Yeah.
They are living their best life.
I think
Truly.
so.
They
They're
get to
really having
roam.
their moment. Does that mean
Yeah.
what does that say about me? Does that say, like, I wanna have a moment? I don't know. They give people joy just by being themselves.
Well, did we not just talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I get joy when you're yourself. So
Thank
there
you.
we go.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay. You're going to be a sloth and or a Highland cow.
Mhm.
Amazing. All right. Question 2. If you could get a drink or a coffee with 2 people, dead or alive, who are they? Why? And maybe what would you say or ask other than me,
Of
obviously?
course, I mean, duh. So, okay, you had asked about people I really admire, and the majority of the people on that list I can get a coffee with whenever I want, so that doesn't feel fair to answer that way. But there's one on there who I can't necessarily yet get a coffee with whenever I want, and that's Dr. Jessica Nurek, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but I follow her on Instagram, and it's hard to admire someone in my world who you've never met
Yeah,
because you don't really know what goes on. You're kind of admiring a facade.
that's right.
And it's like, well, what is it that you admire? I would love to ask her just about or just hear about her experience building this world of helping to debunk all this nonsense
Yeah.
medically and scientifically that's being put out there that's just garbage.
Yeah.
And how does she handle the naysayers and that because people are coming after her, and how does she keep it how does she have self-trust
Yes.
around what she's putting out? That
Yes.
level of kind of calm that she has. Another person who I would love to have coffee with and talk to is her name's Gailey Alec. And she is a DIYer who used to work on Wall Street and now does this thing where she does a lot of things, but she goes into a person's house. They have no consultation. The person moves out for like 3 to 7 days. They don't talk about anything. They just give her a budget and their credit card, and Gailey and her team just do it. And it's a surprise reveal. I only know what I see. I've not, but her heart to me just feels massive. And I think she too probably gets a decent amount of backlash because once you hit some level of popularity on the socials, it comes with the territory.
Mhm.
And I just am so curious. She's gorgeous inside, most importantly, right? She just seems like a gorgeous human being. Outwardly, she's a very attractive human. And what I think has been so fun lately is that she's been posting about her dating dilemmas because she's single and she's been on these dating apps. And the fact that men are saying stupid things to her on these apps is so awful and yet comforting. It's
Right.
like, how do you blow it with somebody like, if you can blow it with somebody like Gailey Alex, then I won't take it I'm not on the dating apps, but like, I won't take it so personally that, so I'd love to hear her whole story
Mhm.
because there's so much that I don't think we get. So
Mhm.
those are the
No, you're
two that
right.
come to mind. The list could go on and on and on. I mean, my grandfather passed 15, 16, 17 years ago, and being where I am now, he was an Episcopal priest, and I would love nothing more than to sit down with him and have a conversation. Yeah.
There's so much in this story arc, bringing it back to author terms, of like, it's less to me about your who and more the why. That's so interesting, and it's mirroring your own personal journey, but also, like, your own definition of what it is to authentically self-express in an open, uncorseted way, right?
Of course, this is going to be have you thought of titling your book this?
No, but it's one of my brand concepts.
Okay, I'm in love with it.
I have the title, I think, and I will not take feedback on it.
Fair. Noted and accepted.
I actually okay, you'll appreciate. I put the whole thing into AI just to like I'm like, "Can you just make me an outline from this? Because 'Cause I'm not
Uh-huh.
doing it." Brilliant. And I hadn't told it what I thought the title should be, and it told me what it thought the title should be, and it's what I wanted it
Come
to be.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
It was like, "Maybe you should title it this," and I was like, "Hmm."
Hmm.
And I know,
Well,
and you even
hey.
say this, like, "Don't get attached," and I'm like, "I'm kind of attached to this one
Yeah,
emotionally," but it's not even emotionally attached. I'm like, "It's just the right one, and I
that's
won't be
just the
taking
right
feedback."
title. When you know, as they say.
I won't be taking input on that.
I will not be taking suggestions.
Amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
next question.
Okay.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Fine with it.
It's a
Like,
very controversial topic for
it
some,
is
very
very
polarizing.
controversial.
Honestly,
Okay.
if we're gonna bring a polarizing conversation into the world, I feel like we need to bring that one into the world as a
Oh
palate
my gosh, for
cleanser.
sure. Strawberries on pizza, I'm not feeling that. I
No.
there's certain things that I don't, but maybe if it's like a balsamic with no red sauce, maybe the strawberries would work. But then is it really
Kind of an
pizza?
appetizer pizza. Yeah, it's like a
Yeah, like
flatbread.
kind of a
Yeah.
yeah. But no, okay with pineapple, that's fine.
Okay. Love that.
I prefer it's not out of a can. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
okay. Fresh
Where it comes
pineapple,
from.
straight from Hawaii. Okay.
From
Must
my
be flown
backyard
in.
garden.
Yeah. Oh, from your
I'll be
backyard
growing
garden. There we
those
go.
too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. Number 4. I am a fly on the wall on an average Friday night for you. What do I see you doing?
Oh my God. I'm in pajamas, probably have been wearing them all day. I have yet to shower, most likely, which I do once a day, but sometimes at night. I'm watching TV. There's nothing I haven't seen, Julie.
Mhm.
Nothing on any channel. I've seen it all.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
I want you to know this is just about everyone's answer.
Really?
And in my interview with my friend Kate that came out this week, she was like, "Oh, it's so lame." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. Like literally we're on what episode? I don't know. I think you're going to be like 2021 or so." I'm like, "So far, our small sample size of 20 people have said the same thing."
Yeah.
Oh,
Like I'm maybe it's my age of life, maybe it's my stage of life. When I was in college, I really didn't go out either. I've just never
same.
been a big goer outer.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm so happy there with my dog and who's annoying, but I love him so much and
Yeah.
fine by me.
This is honestly why I started this podcast because I wanted to bring humanness into the conversation and
Please.
like the real people and what really happens in the dark moments and the light moments and all in between and like this whole
Like I'm
glamorizing
wearing
of
yoga short. Like this shirt is kind of nice, but I'm wearing yoga shorts and slippers right now. That's what's going down.
yeah, I'm in half mountain bike clothes and yeah, yeah, and need a shower. Definitely need a
Yeah.
shower.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Uh,
fine.
yeah, it's fine. We're just humans.
We're just human.
Humaning. All right, last one.
Yeah.
You've kind of answered it, but I'm going to challenge you to come up with another. What's a hidden pleasure or obsession of yours that people might find surprising, weird, quirky, or questionable?
Like people are surprised to find out like my degrees in Japanese.
Ooh, that's right. I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
what? So that's not really a quirky obsession,
It was
but
at one
it's
point.
just something where people go, "Wait, what?"
You had to like it enough to get a degree in it.
And then have
I would
no
say that's
idea what
maybe obsession, like depending on who you ask.
depending. Yeah, like here's something interesting. Okay. Oh, I don't know if it's interesting, but here's something that's maybe a quirky obsession. When I go to like salvage stores
Mhm.
or vintage stores and I find pictures, old black and white pictures of people or old letters that people have written, but
Mm,
specifically people, I have a really hard time leaving them there. So I have been known to bring them home and like I have been known to occasionally frame them, name these people. I don't know what it just really it hurts me that this is like someone's family. This is and they're just in a pile in this like they I don't know.
Liz,
Yeah.
this is your fiction series.
What do you mean?
You're taking these letters and turning them into a whole series, telling the story. You're like, I'm giving them names and like inspired by a series of letters or
Maybe
like
that's what my character will do in my next book. Like God. Okay, don't get me off track because I have to finish the current book. I already have 2 other book ideas after this one, and now you've given me another one, and Neely is like, "Damn it, if somebody else gives you an idea, I'm good." Neely is, like, one of my good friends here who's a author, and she's her 3rd book just came out, and she's fantastic, but she's like, "Get this damn thing written, Liz."
we'll put it in the cauldron, put it in your
Yeah.
queue, your writing queue. We've got the reading queue, but then there's the writing queue. Valid.
Yeah.
It's like a wartime historical fiction. This
See,
is
I'm
what
never
like
gonna write wartime though, like
a
historical
romance.
fiction, not really. Yeah, it would be a romance or some sort of an adventure. Another book that I'm gonna work on after if I ever get this one done has to do with a letter that the main character receives and how it takes her on this grand adventure. So maybe I can kind of work it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's already it's already in the
It's
works. We're just
percolating.
we're
It's
just taking it
percolating.
a layer deeper. You might have some a real source here. You're
An
taking the
actual
nonfiction and making it the inspo
right.
for the fiction. Yeah. It's the muse.
The muse, if you will.
Mhm. I mean, if it's that good, if it's good enough to frame it. But what's so cool is you're like, trying to preserve these people's story.
It just
Of course
bugs
you
me, like,
are.
I'm like, this if my I think about, fast forward 100 years or whatever, if
Mhm.
my children's photos somehow escaped the family passing down and just ended up in some random store,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it comes back to your sort of the premise of you, which is you love hearing people's stories and
Mhm,
like helping them get them out there
mhm,
and wrapping words around. And whether it's a story told through pictures or letters or books, there's this sort of like preserving it and taking it from its raw form and turning it into art
mhm.
and passing it along.
Yeah, I love that, and I heard something the other day, I'm gonna have to remember who said it, but, oh, it was, Neil deGrasse, I think.
Mhm.
Neil de Neil deGrasse Tyson or Ne
Yes,
you
you're
know what I'm
there.
saying?
Yeah.
Make
No,
that sound right. Anyway, he said, "The beauty of art is that if you put an idea out into the world and it's science, someone if you don't pursue it, someone will.
mhm.
The beauty of art is there's no one on the planet who can create what you would create the way you would create it. No one."
Yes.
And that's why with books, you can tell the same story over and over again because it's not the same story.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting you say that, because you've said that before, and I took it to heart. It's such a great thing for overcoming your inertia to get
Yeah.
started. And I was thinking about this, nonfiction book I just read, a self-help
Mhm,
book that
mhm.
has great stories in it. And I remember closing the book and being like, the, like, how-to self-help part didn't do it for me, but the stories do. And it's the how-to self-help part to me felt like recycled psych lit, And I was like, nah, that I didn't get anything from
Mhm.
that. The stories, though, are imprinted and burned in my brain.
And you never know what someone's going to take because somebody else might read that same book and not resonate with the stories, but love the prompts.
That's right. That's right.
Right. Which doesn't mean that you have to have stories, you have to have prompts. I'm a firm believer in story in
Totally.
nonfiction because I think it helps the reader figure out.
Lands in your body
Yeah, it's
a
like
little
it's
bit.
a visual, like you can, it's illustrative. But I mean, unless it's a scientific book, but most of us aren't reading pure scientific books unless we're in med school or whatnot. But yeah, I
But
hear
I
you.
think that to your point, it's like when artfully used, the story is what makes it yours
Mhm,
in that type of how-to teaching authoritative type of thing
mhm.
versus you just took it out of a psych textbook and regurgitated it. And I'd say this one was done fairly well, in doing that. But again, what I took away was the story, and what someone else is going to take away is the prompts or the
Well,
how-tos.
and not to pile on, but like, or not to add any more content onto this, but that's one of the beauties of being really invested in your own nonfiction. Because when a lot of times first time authors who are writing nonfiction will lean on another expert. So they'll constantly be referencing Brené Brown, Mel Robbins, you can list them all off. And so my encouragement to them is often the reader, if the reader wants to hear what they think about this, they'll read their books. They want to know what you think about this. And
Mhm.
so it gives them permission to tell their story, which
Yeah.
then shows how they learned to frame this differently in their head. Even if it was kicked off by something Brené Brown said, how did that then make its way into your ecosystem and part of who you are and how you move through the world?
It's not a term paper.
It is
Yes.
not a term paper,
Where you need to have you need to give credit and cite, obviously, where that's
obviously.
important. And that's not the point, right? To like, I just think of like my college thesis, which was basically a term paper
Right.
to prove a point, but I'm referencing all the research and all the things.
And the point that people are often trying to prove when they're constantly citing other experts is that they know what they're talking about. But counterintuitively, it's an oxymoron because they're actually saying that they're not comfortable enough sharing their insights yet, which is a
Yeah.
which is just a point along the journey for many, 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 many people,
Hmm.
recognizing that and then working through that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, we could do this all day
Yeah, we
and
could.
for about another several weeks.
Right.
But you've got sourdough to start tonight, you promised.
Sure do. I'm
And we
ready.
are waiting for it.
You just
I'm gonna
get
need to hear
yourself
about
on
this.
over to Instagram. I'm surely going to be documenting this in my stories.
But what I love to ask everyone is if you could whisper in the ear of a part of you that was younger or newer or more naive in the process, maybe in one of those sinking moments, what's a piece of advice that the current version of you would whisper to her?
Something I've been doing recently is I've been journaling and I journal as the current me to the future me. And then
I
I
do that too.
journal back the future me to the current me. So I think, there's the WW, like WW, whatever. I think it
Yeah.
originated with like JD, right? For what would Jesus do? But I'm like, I think I would ask myself at a much earlier, like the whisper would be, what would future Elizabeth do?
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I wish I'd gotten that advice
Mhm.
earlier in life. And like future Julie, not what the world says future Julie needs to be, but actual me.
Like if you can see yourself in the future version of yourself that you aspire to, what would she now the caveat of that is that way back when that I saw a future version of myself that was created based on my interpretation of what she should look
You're
like and
right.
be
You're
like,
right.
right. But so this is assuming that's not true. Otherwise, it's just the cliche, everything will be fine.
That's right. Yeah.
You're always okay in the present moment. And as someone who lives in the future all the time, it is a constant effort for me
Oh,
to
for
remind
sure.
myself, just you're fine. It's the present moment, you're fine.
So interesting as someone who lives in the future, i.e., that's the definition of anxiety, right? Where, like, but your advice is to listen to the version of you in the future.
Right.
And it's like you're taking it's the double-edged sword. It's like you're taking the thing that sometimes you wield against yourself and it's becoming the thing that cuts through the noise and is actually calming your system or giving you clarity or whatever it is you need in the moment of the present moment.
It's almost like you have to learn how to use the future to your advantage,
Yeah, that's right.
which is a process for me.
That's a process
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
But the intention is there, the energy is there
Mhm.
to try and use the future. It's
Right.
just being wielded against you in a
Like,
way.
use it for good, not for, "Oh my god, what if?" Switch the what if.
Amazing. Thank you. I love
Thank
that.
you.
All right. Well, what's the best way for everyone to get in touch with you?
Either my website, which is elizabethlyons.com, or publishaprofitableBook.com. They go to the same place. Or Instagram is really where I'm most active. Elizabeth Lyons, author.
All right. I'll put all that in the show notes for
Yay.
everyone to get connected. And everyone go follow her on Instagram because we got to keep up with the sourdough starter. Promise
The
we're holding
journey.
you accountable.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's going to be a couple weeks when this comes out. So you better have receipts.
Oh, God. Okay.
No pressure.
Here we go. I'm going right now. I'm getting out my scale. It's happening.
It's okay if it doesn't work out. We'll still love you.
Look, I've got begin again tattooed on my inner forearm. So that's
Mhm.
what we'll do if I have
Okay.
to.
Okay, perfect. Great. All right. Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, bye.